Okay, we can start. Today is July 20th, 2013. Okay, we start with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, good morning everybody. Okay, so we've been studying Sutta number 101 in the Middle Length Discourses. This is the discourse at Devadaha. And last week we took the first part of this discourse in which the Buddha is engaging in a kind of discussion or a debate with the Jains, some of the Jain ascetics. And according to the Jain teaching, sort of the underlying foundation of their practice is the idea that in order to be completely liberated, they have to eradicate all of the karma that has been stored up through the beginningless past. Because whatever a person experiences, whether it's painful or pleasant, all that is the result of karma that was done in the past. And so to be liberated, what they try to do is to accelerate the process of exhausting the karma by subjecting themselves to physical austerities, to practices of self-mortification. And so this is quite different from the Buddha's practice. And so the Buddha first approaches the Jains and then he asks them whether they know that they've experienced so much, that they've undergone so much karma in the past, whether they existed in the past or did not exist, whether they did evil actions in the past, whether by practicing these austerities they're going to exhaust their suffering, and so on and so forth. And to all of these questions, the Jains answer no, that they don't have that knowledge themselves. Okay, so then in paragraph 9 of the sutta, on page 829, the Buddha says, "But since, O friend Nikantas, you do not know that you existed in the past," and so forth, "it is not fitting for the Venerable Nikantas to declare, to make all of these declarations that whatever a person experiences is due to what was done in the past, that when they undergo these austerities, all suffering will be exhausted." So that's where we finished up last time. And so now the text continues. When this was said, then the Nikantas told the Buddha, they said, "Friend, the Niganta Nataputta is omniscient and all-seeing, and he claims to have complete knowledge and vision thus, whether I'm walking or standing or asleep or awake, knowledge and vision are continuously and uninterruptedly present to me." So according to the Buddhist text, this is a claim that the teacher of the Jains, Mahavira, made about himself, to have omniscience on all occasions, under all circumstances, even when he's asleep. He knows everything. Okay, and then the Jains continue. And he has said to us, Nigantas, you have done evil actions in the past, exhaust them by performing these piercing austerities. And when you are here and now restrained in body, speech, and mind, then you will not be creating any evil karma for the future. And thus, by annihilating with the ascetic practices, the austerities, past karma, and by creating no fresh karma, then there will be no consequence in the future, no flowing out of that karma into the form of a new existence. And when there is no consequence in the future, then all suffering will be exhausted. So this is what the Jain teacher Mahavira Nigantanataputta teaches the Jains. And now the Jains say to the Buddha that we approve of this and we accept this, and so we are satisfied. Okay, they don't know this themselves, they don't see this themselves, but they accept this out of trust in their teacher Mahavira, because they have trust that Mahavira is omniscient, and so he teaches this on the basis of his omniscience. Okay, now, we Buddhists we say that we have defilements. Because of the defilements, we create karma, and through the maturing of this karma, we experience pleasure and pain, and sometimes fortune, misfortune, in this present life, and we'll experience it in future lives. You know, just look at the account of the Buddha's enlightenment. We looked at it last week. The Buddha says that with the divine eye, which is purified, surpasses the human, I saw beings passing away and taking rebirth. Those who did bad deeds of body, speech, and mind are reborn in bad destinations. They meet with misfortune, they undergo suffering, and so on. Whereas those who have done good deeds by body, speech, and mind are reborn in happy states. They meet with good fortune and they experience good circumstances and pleasant experiences. And so if somebody asks, well, we're Buddhists, what is the basis for believing that? Or what is the basis for accepting that? What do you say? Johnny? Faith in what? What? How are you going to verify it? No. The Jains can say, we reflect on this, it seems reasonable to us. Sagarakanti, how about you? You can't convince someone that did or didn't experience it. But how about our belief that we have done karma in the past and we're meeting the results of it in the present? On what basis do we accept? See you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's good, yeah. But faith in what? Okay. Okay, so we have faith in the Buddha too. We accept this on faith in the Buddha. The Buddha, at least in the suttas, he doesn't claim to be omniscient, all knowledge, to have all knowledge present all the time, sleeping and waking. But he certainly declares certain things on the basis of abhinya, super knowledge. and we accept them out of trust in the Buddha. So accepting out of trust isn't faulty. Accepting something out of trust, out of faith, it seems, is not faulty in itself. Okay, but let's see how the Buddha continues in his discussion. Okay, so then when this is said, then the Buddha replies to the Nigantas. He says, there are 5 things that may turn out in 2 different ways here and now. What are these 5? They are faith, approval or maybe liking, we could say, ruchi. It means like a personal liking for a teaching. Oral tradition, what has been, because in the Buddha's time, teachings were passed down, spiritual teachings always passed down orally. And this referred especially to the Brahmins who passed down the Vedas orally. But the Buddha's text also came to be passed down orally, from generation to generation, 300, 400 years till they were written down. So now we could say written scriptures. Okay, then reasoned cogitation or reflection. I think, Johnny, you said that. And then the 5th is reflective acceptance of a view. That is, one is exposed to a particular view and one reflects upon it. So actually we could say that all of these 5 could be basis for a Buddhist to accept the idea of karma and rebirth. We have faith in the Buddha, and we believe that at least these texts are preserving the word of the Buddha. We have what's called approval here, but maybe I would prefer liking. Just somebody spontaneously develops a liking for Buddhism, and so then they find out what the Buddha's teaching is, and so because they like Buddhism, and so they'll accept what the Buddha says about karma, rebirth, defilements. Oral tradition, or now we could say a scriptural tradition. This is what it says in Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 4, passages 27, something like that. Reason cogitation, or reflective reflection, reflection on reasons. I could reflect, why do some people have a lot of misery, illness, misfortune, trouble, difficulties. Other people, everything goes easy for them. They meet with success, whatever they do. The one who tries hard, he is always meeting with obstacles. The one who just sits back and, watches the ball game and listens to music, goes outside and just strikes it rich. So why does this happen? Someone reflects, and then maybe one thinks it must be due to deeds, their past actions when, in previous lives, and so on. Then reflective acceptance of a view. Again, one gets exposed to the view of Buddha Dharma, one reflects on it, and one can accept it. So the things the Buddha says here, these may turn out in 2 different ways here and now. He doesn't elaborate it here, probably in the actual situation he did, but a few suttas earlier, the 2 different ways things will turn out is explained, and so probably the compilers of the text didn't have to fill this out, because they would have realized that the reader or listener would know it from the previous sutta. So the way things turn out, 2 different ways things might turn out, is, the Buddha says, a person, yes, on page 780 in the Majjhima Nikaya, somebody might accept something fully out of faith, and the faith might turn out to be empty, hollow, and false. But again, somebody might accept something fully out of faith, and it might be true and valid. Similarly, with each of the others, somebody might like something, it might be false, And somebody might like something and it might be true. And so with each of the other reasons. So the point is that these 5 reasons for accepting a teaching, for accepting a belief, are not sufficient to guarantee the truth of that belief. What they will do is dispose one to accept the belief, but in order to determine whether the belief is true or false, one needs a more secure basis, a more solid ground, which would be personal, experiential confirmation. Okay, so now the Buddha continues, and he is somewhat hard on the Jains, I have to say. He says, what kind of faith do you venerable Jains have in a teacher who speaks about the past? What kind of liking or approval? What kind of oral tradition? What kind of reasoned cogitation? What kind of reflective acceptance of a view? And speaking thus, I did not see any legitimate defense of their position by the Jains. Does it seem to be somewhat too severe? What do you think? Okay, suppose we have some some Jains sitting in the audience, and I give a typical explanation of the 12 links of dependent origination. So I say, because of our ignorance and craving in the past, we engage in karmic activities. Those karmic activities bring about a renewal of the stream of consciousness at rebirth. When consciousness descends and gets a footing, it brings along name and form. From the development of name and form, there emerge the 6 sense bases. The 6 sense bases give rise to contact. Contact gives rise to feeling. Feeling gives rise to craving and clinging. Through our clinging, we generate a new existence in the future. Then comes new birth, then old age and death. So now, just when I feel very proud of myself for such an elegant explanation of the 12 links, some Jains come up and say, what is your basis for explaining in that way? So I say, this is what I learned from the Buddhist texts. Then he says, well, what kind of faith do you have, Bhante, in the Buddhist texts? What kind of liking, what kind of reasoned reflection, what kind of reflective acceptance of a view? Speaking thus, I did not see any legitimate defense of his position by Bhikkhu Bodhi. Okay, so I have to say it does seem a bit hard to me. Okay, so now the Buddha continues. Okay, now he's saying to the Jains, what do you think when there is this intense exertion, this intense striving, and he's referring to the ascetic practices that the Jains undertake? Do you then feel painful, racking, piercing feelings due to your intense exertion, to your self-mortification? And when there is no intense exertion, no intense striving, then is it the case that you do not feel those painful, racking, piercing feelings? And so now the Jains admit that when we undertake this extreme, austere practices, these austere self-mortification practices, then we feel painful, racking feelings. But when we aren't undertaking the extreme self-mortification practices, then we do not feel those painful, piercing feelings. And so here the Buddha has actually, I would say, succeeded in showing the Jains that their thesis that whatever a person feels, whether pain, pleasure, or neither painful nor pleasant feeling, all that is caused by what was done in the past. Because now he's shown them that they're experiencing painful feelings because of what they're doing in the present. And so with this, the Buddha has, in a sense, undermined their position that by annihilating with the asceticism past actions and by creating no fresh karma, there will be no consequence in the future, and so on. So now the Buddha sort of draws out the conclusion. He says, if when there was intense striving, you experience those painful feelings due to your striving. But when there was no intense exertion, no intense striving, you still experienced those extremely severe painful feelings. In that case, you might have some basis for claiming that whatever one feels is due to action performed in the past. But since you feel those extremely painful feelings only when you're engaged in the self-mortification, and when you stop the self-mortification, those painful feelings stop, then you cannot claim that everything that you feel is due to what was done in the past. And so then the Buddha says, it is through ignorance, unknowing, and delusion that you mistakenly hold whatever this person feels, whether pleasure, pain, or neutral feeling, all that was done, all that is felt because of what was done in the past. Okay, then the Buddha goes through a rather long interrogation of the Jains about the different ways of eliminating karma. I'm not going to go through that. You can read it on your own and follow the notes. But we just come to the conclusion that gets rather long and tedious, but I'll just maybe try to sum up the conclusion. I'll let you read the long conclusion on paragraph 21. But with paragraph 22, then the Buddha draws out what he takes to be 10 legitimate deductions from their own assertions, from what the Jains themselves have admitted, 10 deductions from their assertions that provide grounds for censoring them. First, one is that if the pleasure and pain that beings feel are caused by what was done in the past, then the Jains must have done bad deeds in the past because now they are feeling such painful, racking, piercing feelings. Okay, so if they're subjecting themselves to such, intense austerities, by practicing extremely long fasts, by taking up the squatting posture and holding it for days on end without lying down, exposing their bodies to the heat of the sun, to the cold of the night, lying down on beds of thorns, then they're experiencing extremely painful feelings. And so all of these, if all of these feelings were done by their karma from past lives, then they must have created bad karma in their past lives. Okay, so that is one conclusion. And that would be the conclusion that agrees with the Jain's own position, that whatever one experiences was done in the past. But now the Buddha says, if the pleasure and pain that